So I'm going to be talking tonight. The subject is buckets of water, right? I think that's what I said. And I gave a talk very similar to this a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And I don't remember what tipped me off to it this time, but this is, I know exactly what it is. I was talking to one of the students and their parent, so a kid and their parent, and they had this book that we have in the lobby, Zen Shorts, and it's a great kids book that has these Zen stories, and one of the stories reminded me of some of these stories in Zen Flesh, Zen Bones. If you haven't read this yet, it's phenomenal. It's not the kind of book that you just read once and you're like, that's great. For me, I refer to this book more than anything else when I'm giving talks because it's filled with short, fun stories. And each one has like a level of depth that you can kind of get right away, and then there are deeper and deeper levels, and the more you read it, the more you're like, oh, and it blows your mind. But some of these are going to be, we'll see how deep we can go tonight. I only have 20 minutes. The first story I'm going to read is the second one in this book. So this one I like to think of sometimes when it's a drought in California. I don't know where you guys were raised. I was raised in Northern California during this big drought, and we were always being told by teachers and parents not to waste a single drop of water. So this one's called The Drop of Water. A Zen master named Gisan asked a young student to bring him a pail of water to cool his bath. The student brought the water and, after cooling the bath, threw onto the ground the little that was left over. "You dunce," the master scolded him. "Why didn't you give the rest of that water to the plants? What right have you to waste even a drop of water in this temple?" The young student attained Zen in that instant. He changed his name to T'ai Chi, which means a drop of water. And I had this thought a little while ago, like, what if this was the only thing that we changed about our life? Is that on a day-to-day basis, we were just trying to not waste a single drop of water. And that could go into lots of different areas, but let's say just literally from like pouring glasses of water, or the way that you're cleaning or whatever. And there are times when you're using water. And if you're just like so mindful about every opportunity to conserve, on some level, on a very basic surface level, it's just an opportunity that is always there to be mindful and not to waste even a single drop. Now, this book is filled with stories of old monks yelling at young monks, and very many of the stories end with somebody achieving enlightenment because of the thing that was yelled at them or the way they were hit or whatever. And you know, maybe some of us someday will get yelled at in just the right way and we'll just achieve enlightenment in that moment. But like I was talking about a little bit last week, whether we have that moment where it's like, that's it, I have achieved enlightenment, I am the Buddha permanently, or we have the more just day-to-day opportunities that are kind of like one drop of water at a time. And I'll get more into that later on. There's a really great story. This one might also be in Zen Shorts, but this one I've read and referred to countless times. It's one of my favorites. It's called No Water, No Moon. So when the nun Chiyono studied Zen under Buko of Engaku, you don't need to remember any of these names, she was unable to attain the fruits of meditation for a long time. At last, one moonlit night, she was carrying water in an old pail that was bound with bamboo. So she's got this bucket of water, and it's bound with bamboo. The bamboo broke, and the bottom fell out of the pail. And at that moment, Chiyono was set free. In commemoration, she wrote a poem. In this way and that, I tried to save the old pail, since the bamboo strip was weakening and about to break, until at last the bottom fell out. No more water in the pail, no more moon in the water. And she, in a very millennial fashion, has finished both of those sentences with an exclamation mark. Exclamation mark. And this, I love this so much. The moon, this symbolism is all over the place in Zen. Anytime you're here in the dojo and there's a full moon that we can see, I'll point to it and I'll reference this scene in Enter the Dragon where Bruce Lee says, don't look at the finger, it's the finger pointing to the moon. He says, don't look at that finger and miss all the heavenly glory. And this is like so much of what our practice in life is like we're staring at the finger that's pointing to the moon, and you want to instead look at the thing that's being pointed to. And that's everything that I'm about to say tonight is all just a finger. But I hope that it points in a direction that takes you somewhere closer to the moon. But in this, first of all, it's a beautiful imagery, right? Here's the pail of water, and then you can imagine in this pail of water is the reflection of the moon, and I imagine it's a full moon. Beautiful moonlit night. She's walking around. It's an otherwise wonderful night, and then the pail just breaks. And she was really excited to have this pail of water. I'm sure she was going to drink a nice, fresh cup of water or take a bath or something with it. And all the water's gone. And in that moment, she's enlightened. And there, again, are levels to this. But what I'll kind of point out today is the pail, the bucket, can kind of be a stand-in for our bodies and for the ego. And at some point, no matter how hard we try to hold this old pail together, that bamboo strip is going to break. And the bottom is going to fall out. And that will be the end of us. And in that moment, it's very easy to see like that's a terrible thing. I'm dead. My bucket is broken. Seems like it's all bad. But if you go a little bit further into this analogy and you view the water as our attachments, and it's what the ego was desperately trying to hold on to, is all that water that was in the bucket, and the reflection of the moon, as beautiful as it is also on some level just an attachment and a thing that the ego is trying to grasp and failing to grasp usually. And so when the pail breaks, this could be literally we're dead, and so then we kind of achieve enlightenment in our own way in that moment, which gives me some solace. Whether you believe you're going to an afterlife or not, at least you're free from this desire and this desperate feeling that life can have sometimes. You're just trying to keep it all together. You're done, which is beautiful. But it also doesn't have to be literal body death. It can just be ego death. And so when the pail falls apart, and this is important, it just drops. This isn't somebody trying to beat the water out of the pail, which is how sometimes our practice can feel. Oftentimes meditation cannot feel so relaxing and have a sense of ease. It can feel like we're trying to, as my Sifu always says, beat the darkness out of a room with a stick, which if you've ever walked into a dark room and tried to beat out the darkness with a stick, you'll realize that that's futile. All you have to do is flip on the light, right? So in this case, it's even easier than that. The bottom of the pail just falls out, and the water just falls out, and it's effortless. And in that moment, she's enlightened because she has the same kind of feeling. So one of the things that we might experience in meditation can actually feel physically like something is dropping away from us. And I'm not saying that because you should start being attached to searching for a feeling of something dropping away from you, because then that's its own form of attachment that will just mess up your meditation. But if you have this experience of just kind of like sinking into the moment, or allowing the ego mind to just drop away from you, then that is, in that moment, this like effortless kind of perfect moment that might happen after many years of effort and countless meditations where it does feel like I'm trying to beat the darkness out of a room with a stick. But in this moment, we just gave in, and our bottom fell away, and all the water went with it. So if you are fighting in your meditation, remember that sometimes it's just as easy as letting go, and then that water and the attachments and all of this just goes with it. The very sense that we have of like, I have to hold on to some desire to get something out of this meditation, is the thing that's keeping us in that moment, in that delusion. So just try to let go. Speaking of buckets of water, we had this wonderful experience on an internal retreat. We had one that I ran here at our retreat center, where we were carrying around spoons of water. And were you on that one? Oh, this was great. Were you in that one? All right, well, I was there. You'll all have to take my word for it. It was really wonderful. I took the inspiration from The Alchemist. Is that what this is called? The Alchemist, the book, right? Great. You guys read this book? It's wonderful. So in The Alchemist, there's a lot that's going on in this book. And this is not really a spoiler. It happens kind of early on. But the hero of the book is searching for this treasure, this untold treasure. And he ends up in this mansion. And he's in the mansion. He meets the person who owns it. And this is like one of the richest men ever. And he explains to the young man, he says, I want you to take this spoon. I think in The Alchemist, it's got 3 drops of oil in it. And he says, I want you to take this spoon with 3 drops of oil and walk around everywhere in this mansion and then come back to me. And he does that dutifully. He's walking around. He's just like, got these 3 drops of oil. If I spill it, he'll know. And so then he just walks around with his head like this the entire time. And then he comes back to the old man, and he's like, look, I got all 3 drops of oil still here. And this man says, that's great, but did you see any of, the beautiful tapestries and these wonderful people over here from such and such country and da-da-da? And of course, the young man was just like staring at the spoons the whole time. He saw nothing. And then he sent him out again. He's like, go and keep the drops of oil in the spoon, but see everything. And this is, kind of the way that we want to go through life. If we're not going to set aside our entire life and live in a monastery. We can live in the world, but not of the world, which means that we're not just totally bound by our desires, and we can still kind of carry around the 3 drops of oil and kind of be centered in that way, but we can also still live in the world and still enjoy the things that are there for us to enjoy, that are put there for a purpose, if you want to believe that. And so we want to kind of be able to have that in our practice and our meditation, where we're grounded, yet we're able to still appreciate and move through life without just being here. In martial arts, we call this having a floodlight consciousness and awareness rather than a spotlight or like a laser awareness. So if you get tunnel vision like this, and you're looking at somebody, you can literally just see that one part of them. You can't see their arms and legs. You want to have this floodlight awareness where you can see everything, and that helps us in martial arts to be able to see what they're going to attack us with. But in life, also to be able to shift. Of course, I'm reading a book I want to be able to just be focused on this. I'm at home, so I don't have to worry about somebody trying to attack me. But then when I'm driving, I can't just be staring at the license plate of the car in front of me. I got to have my awareness everywhere. Please pay attention to what's going on around you when you're driving. And this ability to kind of shift focus is really key. And so I think that it's helpful sometimes to have a physical thing that you can focus on when you're doing that, like a spoonful of water like we did on retreat, where it was the same thing. We kind of had people walk around. It's like, don't spill the water, but also, you have to appreciate what's going on. We're in this beautiful mountain scenery with these giant trees, and it's just gorgeous out there, and you can't just be staring at the water in your spoon the whole time. The last story, I tried and could not find an actual written down version of this, except for one really bootleg version that was not right. It missed a very important detail. So I'm just going to tell it from memory. I don't know where it comes from, but I'm going to assume that it happened a long time ago in some other country. Let's say it's Japan or China. And there is in my version of the story, it's a martial arts teacher. And he is very old and very gray, very long beard. And he walks like this with a cane now. And so his pail is about to fall out from underneath him. And he's like, I'm going to pass on this school and this practice and all of this knowledge and all of this responsibility to one of my favorite students. So he brings his two students that he feels like are the best suited to take over. And he tells these two, I want you to meet me tomorrow morning at dawn. Meet me out in the field over there beyond the edge of the dojo. And so they meet at dawn, and they see these two giant vats set up. Not a small bucket, huge buckets. And in front of each one of them is a little bucket, and the teacher explains to them what they're going to do. He says, you're going to race. You're going to run down with your bucket to the river, and you're going to bring back water and fill up your vat of water, and whoever fills up their vat first wins the race, becomes the next sivu of the school. And he's like, go! And they're both really excited. These keen students have been practicing their whole lives, and they both think like, well, this other guy's pretty good, but I know that I would make the best sivu. So they're like, I'm going to give it my all. And so they go over, they grab their bucket, they run down to the river, they dip the bucket in, they start running back up, and they notice that there are holes drilled in the bottom of the bucket. And so when they get all the way back up to the vat, they pour it in, and it's like 10 drops of water. And they look at each other. Neither one of them is giving up, so they run back down to the river. They get the next one, and they run back up, and they throw 10 more drops of water in. And they do this for hours. And there's this much water in the bottom of their vat, which is this big. And they're both just dying tired. They've been running down and up all day long, and the teacher sees that they're really struggling with this, and so he says, I see the problem. We'll stop for today, come back tomorrow, we'll try this again. So they go to sleep. I assume they ate something. They come back the next day, all like, I'm prepared now, I'm going to do this time. And they pick up the bucket and they look at it. There's no bottom in the bucket at all. It's literally just empty. It's just a cylinder like this. And one of the students is just like, F this, throws his bucket, goes back to bed. The other student is like, okay, goes down to the river, puts the bucket in, carries it back, gets 1 drop of water. And he just does that all day. I assume this takes multiple days, and he eventually fills up the vat all the way up, one drop of water at a time. And so the Steve was very proud, and he's like, you are my successor, you get it all. And I really love this story because I think that it is very indicative, again, of our practice, which, as I was referring to in the first story, things have a tendency to kind of happen one drop at a time. And it might feel very often like we're getting nothing or we're even going backwards. A very common experience in meditation is actually that you meditate for a while and you start to feel like you're getting worse at meditation. And while that's possible, it's very unlikely. The reason that this happens is usually because you came in at a certain level of awareness and you have a million thoughts in your head, but you're only aware of these many thoughts. And you meditate and you're like, I'm getting better, I'm getting deeper, I'm more calm and relaxed. And then you're like, wait a minute, now I notice all these thoughts now. And you're like, but you didn't know they were there before. So now your meditation goes from like feeling good to like, now I see all the stuff that's going on in my head. And your experience is, I'm getting less focused, I'm worse because now I notice these things. And this is a very common point where people just give up in meditation, because it feels like, at best, they're running all the way down to the river, getting one drop of water, coming back and filling their vat with some kind of enlightenment, and it's like one drop. It's like, how am I going to ever get anywhere with this? And then sometimes it feels like it's, the water is evaporating faster than you can fill it up. But when we understand that most likely what is happening is our awareness is increasing, that's a good thing. And whether or not we ever get fully aware of all of our thoughts and are able to completely let go of all of them, it doesn't really matter. It's not actually the point. The point is the going down to the river. The point is the sitting on your cushion and just showing up and doing the thing. And it's very unlikely that anybody is ever going to hand us the keys to the kingdom and be like, you are now the chosen one. We just do it for ourselves, or we do it for the people in our lives, not for any kind of ego gain or thing that we're going to get out of it. And this is one of the most difficult parts of our meditation practice for us, especially in the West, is we're used to everything has to have a goal or a thing that comes from it, or some kind of recognition, or they at least write something on a certificate and say, I did something, I accomplished something. There's nothing like that usually. So it's that one drop at a time. And every time we sit, you can just imagine that you're getting one more drop of water in your giant vat that can always fill more. And if we have that kind of understanding, then even when our practice, especially when our practice feels like it's the most challenging, that is when we can get the most out of it. And simply kind of going through that difficult meditation prepares us for what we're going to do in the next day, the challenges that we are going to face, and we might never actually fill up the vat. That's perfectly fine. So in tonight's meditation, you can think of, if you want to be very generous with yourself, you can think of every breath as like adding another drop into the bucket that you're trying to fill. You can just imagine that it's just like one drop of water that's slowly going down the side of the bucket and finding its way down there. And you can also just let go of all of that. One of the best analogies to, again, mushin, this kind of moment where we are just totally present, is similar to the bottom dropping out of the bucket. It's like a piece of fruit that is perfectly ripe. And instead of us going over and pulling it, the fruit drops from the tree. And it's so ripe, it might be overly ripe, that it like explodes when it hits the ground. It's just like so perfect. You imagine, I don't know what this fruit is. You can imagine whatever your favorite fruit is. For me, it's always a fig, But I take a bite into it, it's just like, oh, it's perfect, that's it. So there's no rushing that. In fact, with the fig, I used to have a fig tree, it died, RIP, a gust of wind took it down. But if you pick the fig too early, it doesn't ripen anymore. It just gets moldy. You have to leave it on the branch. It only ripens and gets sweeter on the branch. And then when you take it down at the last possible second, that's when it's the most perfect fig. So what we're going to do is not even pick it. Just let it drop down. Let that breath, that experience of that moment just kind of happen. It just falls off the tree. Let the pale bottom drop out from underneath you, and just let that one drop hit. Sit comfortably. Pull. Close eyes. Spine straight. Eyes upturned. Relax. Watch the breath. Let go of all thoughts, worries, and cares. Be here now. When your mind wanders, gently bring it back. One breath, one drop at a time.